Besides using navigator push like this and creating our material page route here, we can also set up so-called named routes. Now, what's the idea behind named routes, though? The bigger your app gets, the more difficult it can get to manage all these manual route transitions where you then create your own widgets and so on. This can be very cumbersome, and it can be hard to see where in your app people can navigate to which page. And most importantly, it can be difficult to see which routes and which screens your page generally supports. And for that, in the main Dart file, you also have more options than just setting home and then taking it from there. Instead, you can set up a so-called routes table with the help of the routes argument. The routes table takes a map, and therefore you need curly braces to create that map, where you have string keys which identify a route, and a route is really just a screen. And then the value after the colon is in the end your creation function for that screen. So in there, you could, for example, say that you want to have an identifier of /categories, and you could have any text here. It's just a convention which also is taken from web development, that you have paths with a slash at the beginning, because in web development you would have yourpage.com/categories as a URL, and we kind of took this and borrowed this for mobile apps. But in the end, this path here is totally up to you. You could also name this ABC. But I'll go with /categories. And now on the right side, you have your builder method, where you get some context created automatically by Flutter as an argument, the context of this builder function. And on the right side, for example, you create your category meals screen. And therefore, maybe here as I identifier category meals, category-meals is a better identifier. So then we create the category meals screen here. And that means that we also should import it here, of course. So make sure you add your relative import at the top of the main Dart file. And with that, you can quickly see that you seem to have that route available in your app, besides that default categories route. The problem, of course, is that category meals screen wants some data. There, we want to get the ID and the title of the category we're loading. And this isn't really available anymore now, because we expected to get this through the constructor. The constructor now, however, is called in the main Dart file, and here where it's called, we have no idea about which ID or title the element we selected has. Thankfully, though, Flutter also has a different mechanism of passing data between routes. Besides using the constructor of the screen we're loading, it also has its own messaging system, you could say, its own system for passing data. So in the category meals screen here, we can actually comment out this part. You could also remove it. I'll just leave it here for reference. And instead, when we load this page, so here in the category item, we now do two things. We now will not push, but push named instead. And push named does not take a material page route, but it takes the path, so this string identifier to which you want to push. And that would be /category meals, and hence we should use that here instead of push named. But push named also takes arguments. We can provide some arguments here which we want to pass along. Arguments here can be anything. It could be some text, it could be a number, it could be a map, it could be an object. In our case here, we could pass a map with maybe ID, and that will hold as a value our ID here. And then also our title, like this. So now we pass this map as arguments to the new route, to the new screen which is loaded for this route identifier, which is leading to the category meals screen. The question is, how can we now extract the data in the category meals screen? Well, in there, in the build method, you can extract your route arguments and store them in a variable, maybe route args, by using modal route, another class provided by Flutter material, which you also connect to your context with auth context. And then there you can get information about the route that was loaded to display this widget, so to say. You have a settings object there And there you have an arguments object or your arguments key. And that gives you the arguments as you pass them here when you pushed that named route. So in this case, we pushed arguments which are a map of strings. So here we can also inform Flutter and Dart that whatever we get here as arguments will be of type map, where we have string keys and string values. So this is how we extract the route arguments. Now we can also get our category title here by accessing route args, and then, as you always do it on maps, by using the key here in square brackets. Whoops, that, however, should be the title, of course, since I named that category title. And here I have the category ID, which I get with route args ID, like this. So this is also how we can pass data around. And therefore now if we do a full refresh with the green arrow, we should again be able to navigate, and we are, and we see the right title. Now, of course, you might be wondering why you would use this more complex approach of passing data around and why you would use these named routes. And the answer simply is that for bigger apps, this can be easier to manage because you have your clear list of available routes here in the main Dart file, and it's easy to see which different areas your app has, which different screens can be loaded, and how you may get there. So it's really just one option you can use to have a cleaner app which is easier to understand and to get into.